Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Yutet Amud Aleph, the bottom of the Amud, 10 lines up from the bottom. Today's Amud is being learned. L'schut Yehoshua ben Diana, Yael bat Rivka ben Asher ben Asi. Today's Amud is also being learned. Le'ilui Nishmat Tzipora bat Yitzchak, and for Rufuah Shelema of Mehdi ben Parvin, that should have Rufuah Shelema. Amen. We are continuing now in the Agadic part still, the beautiful Agatas about learning and reviewing a person's learning, how fast you learn, how much ground you cover, how much Chazara you do. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Shizbi, Mishmeh de Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, my dichtiv, what's the pasuk that says in Mishlei, Lo yacharoch remiyah? It's talking about someone that catches a tzayid, a trap, a hunter. Lo yacharoch remiyah sedo, vehon adam yakar charutz. And says the pasuk, Lo yechayev lo yarich yamim tzayad haramai. It's a mixture of psukim. So says the Gemara, it means like this. It's talking about a person that's catching limud Torah. Now it's a sayad haramai. So you have, the Gemara says in the first understanding, that sayad haramai is a reference to a person that tricks people by learning high volumes of limud Torah. Imagine he's doing 10, 20 dapim of Gemara, and everyone is like, wow, another siyum masechta, he just made a siyum today, yesterday, 2 days ago. Look at this hazak baruch, right? And he's not doing any chazara, so therefore he forgets everything, right? And that's sayad haramai, a trickster. He is impressing people without accountability of actually learning properly, and therefore Lo yacharoch remiyah sedo. He is not going to be able to benefit from that side because not there. 2 months down the line, you ask him a question about something he learned, and he has no idea even if he has ever seen that piece of information in his life. So lo yacharoch, he's not going to be able to benefit from it when he needs it. Rav Sheshet Amar, Rav Sheshet says, he reads the question, the pasuk in question form. He said, "Sayad haramai yacharoch." So, in other words, he says, "Lo yacharoch remiyah sedo." A smart, wise sayad, a hunter that's smart. He's not going to be macharich sedo. He's not going to benefit from his thing. In other words, he's saying someone that strategizes his limud Torah, he certainly learns a little bit and reviews it, learns a little bit more and reviews it. He's a sayad haramai. He is not a trickster in a negative way, but someone that strategizes his battle, someone that knows how to do tzedakah. Kiata Rav Dimi Amar, Rav Dimi said, as an example to a person that is tzatziporin, a person that is catching birds. Now the Ben Yehoyada says the reason is because you're catching, it's Kabbalistically speaking, the Ben Ish Chai says, you're catching the nitzosot HaKedusha. Every mitzvah that the person does, especially limud Torah, it creates tikkun for nitzosot of the Kedusha that have been scattered in the world. Actually, Maran Chida says something very interesting. He asks a fascinating question. Maran Chida says, take a look at all the places in the world that the Torah flourished. Right? Where was Talmud Bavli written? In Iran. And he writes, he says, go to Iran right now. I don't know what city he visited. It must not be my city. But he says, you go there, people are Amei Haaretz, right? They go to mikveh, they come to shul, they don't even know how to daven properly. So Maran Chida writes that they told him, right? I don't know if he visited all the places himself. He traveled twice in his lifetime around the globe. But nevertheless, he says, look at Spain. Spain was the hotbed of Torah. All the Rishonim are from Spain. Where is anything in Spain right now? Nothing. Right? And he gives a few examples and says, Maran Chida, the reason is because when Adam HaRishon sinned, all of the nitzosot of the Kedusha, sparks of holiness, were scattered around the globe. And now the Avodah is Le'ovda u'l'shomra, you have to go and catch those nitzosot HaKedusha and fix them, be metaken those nitzosot HaKedusha. And once you finish, then you have no job there. We keep moving, right? We are in a moving nation because of that, because we have to go to every place and fix those things and go to the next. And perhaps that explains why the United States of America has been the last stop. Basically, they've been everywhere, aside from the United States, that has been fairly a new country. And now all the Nitzosot HaKedusha from 5,700 some odd years ago are being fixed, hopefully, in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has a lot of Nitzosot of Kedusha, with the Gematria equaling Amalek and dollar and all those things. But that's the reason the Maraka. So Ishai writes, here is the same thing. Your metaken the Nitzosot of the Kedusha is catching the birds, and says Rav Dimi, a person that catches a bird and says, okay, I caught it, and puts it on the side and goes to catch another one, what happens to the previous one? Flies away. So if you're smart, you caught this one, you spend an extra 2 minutes to break its wings or to cut the wings, and then you put it on the side. It's not going anywhere. But you have to first acquire it. You caught it, amazing. Now you have to spend some time to make sure it's not going to fly away. If you, one by one, catch them and then you secure them before you go to the catching of the next one, then you have all of them. But if not, the fact that you caught it, what's gonna do for you? It's gonna fly away. So says the Gemara, why does the pasuk, again back to the same first chapter of Tehillim? So we said that he's going to be ke'etz shatul al palgei mayim asher priyo yiten beito ve'aleu lo yibol. That's the pasuk right immediately after the pasukim we discussed before. So ashrei ha'isha shelo halach b'atzet sha'ib v'chataim lo amad v'shav etzim lo hashav ki im betorat Hashem chefso uv'torato yekei yomam v'layla. That he learns Torah, he loves it, he learns it yomam v'layla. And then the pasuk says, you know what this person is going to be? Ve'aya ke'es shatul al palgei mayim. He'll be like a etz shatul, a tree that is replanted al palgei mayim, by the water source. That now is not worried about water and drought and rain and not rain. Doesn't make a difference. Asher piryo yiten beito, that is going to give its fruits on time, ve'alehu lo yibol, and even its leaves are not going to be suffering from lack of water. They're going to always be green and nice and fresh. So that's what the pasuk says. Now the Gemara is going to darshan that. Says the Gemara, Amri de Rabbi Yanai, ke'esh shatul velo ke'etz natua. It says ke'esh shatul, not natua. That's the difference. The difference is, shatul is like replanted. Natua is when you planted it me'ikara over there. Right now, most of the things are shatul because they have a nursery. You plant them in a small thing, and then you put them in a nursery, and then in a bigger thing, and then finally, when they're grown up a year or 2 or 3 years, then you put them in. You sell them. You put them in the actual final destination. So says the Gemara, what's the difference, shatul or natua? Kol halomed Torah merav echad eino roeh siman bracha leolam. If you only learn from one rabbi, says the Gemara, then you will not be completed in your limud Torah. You have to see different aspects of the Torah, different depth of the Torah, and that's lomed mikol adam, says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, right? Have lamed mikol adam. You have to learn from many people. Everyone has a different aspect that could teach you. Now, there's a concept of Rabo Muvhak, of having one Rebbe, but you have to learn from multiple different people. Now, what does that exactly mean? Does that mean that you should go shop around? No, first of all, we mentioned the Gemara beforehand that there's halachic questions about asking a she'elah. We're not talking about asking she'elah. We're not talking about who is your rabbi. We're not talking about that. We're talking about who is your Rebbe that you learn Torah from, right? And even that, the Gemara is going to now rephrase it a little bit. So, a very interesting, almost humorous story the Gemara says, Amar lehu Rav Chisda le Rabbanan. Rav Chisda told the Chachamim of his Bet Midrash, the Talmidim that he had, he said, I want to teach you something today, but I'm scared to say it. Because I'm scared I'm going to say this and you're going to all leave me and go somewhere else. Back then also was, actually this is the time of Rava and Abaye, right? And the Gemara says elsewhere that there was tacharut, there was a healthy competition between Rava and Abaye, and the Talmidim of Rava would go around and tell the Talmidim of Abaye, said, what are you wasting your time sucking on dry bones in Bet Midrash of Abaye? You want a first cut of meat, brisket, nice, beautiful meat, you come be Rava, you come to Bet Midrash of Rava. So kind of like that tacharut, that competition was there in the time, and this is, Rav Chisda is Ben Doro Shel Rava. It's the same generation as Rava. So, but at the same time, you see the intellectual honesty of the Amoraim. He says, look, I want to teach you today something, and I'm worried that you're going to leave me and go somewhere else. Right? This is what he taught them. Anyone that learns from only one person, his exposure to Torah is only through one person, he's not going to see Siman Bracha. Right? And the Talmidim said, Chacham, because you said this, we're not going to leave you. Right? No. You know what they did? Shavku vazlu. They all got up and left. Right? They left to Rava. They went to the Bet Midrash of Rava to learn. Rava told them, wait a second, not too fast. Not too fast. Or again, the generational wise, it makes more sense that this was in the time of Rabba, because Rabba and Rav Chisda, they were peers. Rav Huna, Rabba, Rav Chisda, they're in the same generation. Rabba is slightly the next generation. So Amar Lehu, Rabba tells them, Hadimiri Svara, Aval Gemara Mirav Echad Adif. Says that's only in learning logics and depth of understanding. Learning Be'iyun, you want to have different exposures to different people to sharpen your skills of learning. But learning the masses of information, Gemara, that's actually better to have one Rav and not to get confused, said Rabba to the students. Because you don't want to, every Rav has their own sprach, they have their own language of how they teach, and you don't want to confuse yourself by going around too much. Once you have all of that and you're advanced, you want to have exposure to different methodologies of limud. When you have iyun, that's something that's positive. So says the Gemara, Al palge mayim, in other words, the next piece of the pasuk says, Vayake es shatul, it's a tree that's replanted, Al palge mayim. What does that mean? Amar Rav Tanchum bar Hanilai, Le'olam yeshalesh adam shnotav shlish b'mikra, shlish b'mishnah, shlish b'talmud. A person should divide their days one third in mikra, 1/3 in Mishnah, and 1/3 in Talmud. I actually think that the Daf Yomi is up to this. This is a Gemara also in Sotah. Anyone knows Daf Yomi here? Daf Chaf Bet. It talks about Limud Torah, and this is actually duplicated in that Gemara as well. I think it's yesterday's or today's Daf of Masechet Sotah fame, Daf Chaf Bet. So the Gemara says you should always divide your life to 3 different divisions. 1/3 of it focus on Mikra and Tanakh, another on Mishnah, which is Torah Shbal Peh, and another one on Gemara. According to Rambam, Mishnah is Torah Shbal Peh, even Halakha Psuka is part of Mishnah. Gemara is the methodology of learning and taking the raw information and drawing conclusions of Halakha. That process of Limud, that process of Lamdut and Iyun is called Gemara. So, why is it that the yeshivot, they learn Gemara all the time? Because they don't just learn the Gemara, they also see the Tosafot on top of the Amud over here. Right? Once you ask, we'll learn it together. Says the Tosafot, take a look at the last 4 lines of the Tosafot. V'nir'eh leRabbeinu tam. Says the Gemara, and this is mentioned over there as well, Masechet Sotah. Nir'eh leRabbeinu tam, de'anu, this is Machloket Rambam and Rabbeinu tam. The anu, that us, she'oskin Talmud Bavli, that we who learn Talmud Bavli, the Gemara that we are learning, that's sufficient. The hainu kihu balul, Bavli means not just that it was written in Bavel, but he balul b'mikra Mishnah wa Talmud. It has all three in it. It has a lot of psukim. Every daf of Gemara has so many psukim. Over here we have 10 of them in this Amud of Gemara, and every daf of Gemara has many psukim. And hopefully when you learn the psukim, you actually spend some time on looking it up and knowing what the context is and so on and so forth. So says the Rabbeinu Tam, Talmud Bavli has everything in it. It has Mikra, it has Mishnah, of course, and it has Gemara. So when you spend your time on Talmud Bavli, you're yotze all of the things that you need to learn. His language is we are yotze the anu shoskim Talmud Bavli dayenu. It's enough for us. Kihu balul b'mikra b'mishnah b'talmud. It's mixed with Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud. Kedamrin and Sanhedrin, like the Gemara says in Masechet Sanhedrin. Now, what does it even mean to divide your years to Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud? It's going to be a question of the Gemara. The Gemara says, wait a second, how do you know how much you're going to live? Well, you're going to say 120 times, the first 10, or the first few years is going to be waste, but basically you're going to say 120 divided by 3 is 40, and then 40 years, the first 40 years you got to learn this, and then the other one, and then the other one. That's not how. You don't know how much you're going to live. Says the Gemara, Mi yada inish kamachai. Does a person know how much he's going to live? The Gemara answers, no. Kikam rinan beyomi. When we talk about this, it's beyomi. That means divide your days to 3. And Rashi understands dividing the days of the week. That means you learn a few days Mikra, few days Mishnah, few days Gemara. Take a look at Rashi. It says, Yomi, Bet Yamim Mikra, Bet Yamim Mishnah, Vechule. Vechon kol shavua veshavua. Every week you divide it to 3 different categories. The Tosafot disagrees with that. It says, wait a second, you don't know how much you're going to live. A person doesn't know if he's going to be alive for next week, right? So it says the Tosafot, Yomi means you divide your day. A third of the day, third of the day, third of the day. That's what it means. But be that as it may, the Tosafot already said that, in the time of Tosafot themselves, they only learned Gemara. Now, the Rambam paskins like the basic understanding of the Gemara, that you actually have to be meshalesh. And then Rambam says, once you are proficient, you know the Mikra Mishnah very well, then you set aside, then you stop doing this third business. You set aside small amounts of time to maintain your knowledge of Mikra and Mishnah, and the rest of the time you only do Gemara. That's what the Rambam writes. But nevertheless, says the Gemara, Asher piryo yiten beito, that its fruit is going to be always on time, says the Gemara, Amar Rava. In piryo yiten beito, ve'aleu lo yibol. Ve'im lav, if he's giving fruits, that means if a person is learning Torah and he's doing what he learns, that means it's not just that he's acknowledging the facts of the Talmud and amassing knowledge, but he actually doing what he learns. He's lomed al menat la'asot. He's learning in order to do. Then amazing. Ve'aleu lo yibol. That's amazing. But if he is learning and not doing, not acting a part with his learning, then says the Gemara, Al halomed v'al hamelamed alehem hakatuv omer, on the teacher and on the student, the pasuk says, Lo chen arshaim. This is the next pasuk afterwards, right? The last psukim of that Perek Aleph of Tehillim, Lo chen arshaim kim kamot asher defenu ruach. It's going to be called chas v'shalom erashai. A person that learns and doesn't do, that is negative. So says the Gemara, Amar Biaba Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav. My dichtiv ki rabim chalalim ipila. Speaking about learning and doing, what's the pasuk that says Rabim Chalali Mipila. Shlomo Melech says in Mishlei Perek Zayin, Ki Rabim Chalali Mipila v'asumim kol harugea, because it has dropped a lot of corpses, v'asumim kol harugea, and it has murdered many people. So what is it referring to? Says the Gemara, Ki Rabim Chalali Mipila, this person that has dropped a lot of corpses, this is a person that is not fit. He has not reached the age and the knowledge base of paskening, and he is paskening. And he is moreh halachot, when he is not befitting. And the second part of the pasuk, that is tremendous numbers of murders, that, says the Gemara, which is even worse, that's a person that could paskin, could fix something, could act upon it, and he doesn't do. That's even worse than a person, the damage that causes is worse than a person that is not befitting and he still paskins. So says the Gemara, what is the proper age, so to speak, to do that? Says the Gemara, ad mem shenin, 40 years of age. That's when a person is more completed in their knowledge base and so on. We spoke about this before in Masechet Chagiga, Rabbeinu Hananel, 50 years for Kabbalah and 40 years for Psak and so on. So says the Gemara, V'har Rava Ori. Rava was a big posek. What's the question? Question is, we know Rava was paskening before 40 years of age. How do we know that? He did not live more than 40 years, because he was from the sons, the descendants of Eli Kohen, who none of them normally lived more than 40 years of age, because of a klala that they had. Now, Abaya and Rava, both of them were from Bet Eli. Abaya did Gilut Chasadim as well. He lived longer, 60 years, whatever. But nevertheless, we know that Rava did not live more than that, and yet he was a tremendous posek. Rava is on every page in Gemara. Says the Gemara, Hatam Beshavin. That's because there was no one bigger than Rava. Rava was the greatest that there was. He was young, correct, but he was the best that you had. He was certainly not less than any other one of the poskim that were older in his generation, and therefore he was allowed to paskin. But never, if it wasn't because of that, then he would not be able to do it. But Zat Hashem, we will continue the rest of this amazing Gemara in the days to come. Zaku Baruch.